welcome to an episode of History Hunters here in the gold country of Stanislaus County. I'm here in the town of LaGrange, dates back to the 1850s, and behind me is the Oddfellows Hall. The original Oddfellows Hall was started in 1857. This building here, 1880. It's now a historical landmark. We're going to talk about this town and show you some interesting historical things that maybe you didn't know about. Maybe you don't even know about this town, but you will after watching this episode. This plaque here tells us everything that we need to know about the Lafayette Historical Lodge number 65, one of the oldest continuously occupied buildings in LaGrange. In 1857, Lodge 65 of the Independent Order of Oddfellows of California was formed. The Oddfellows purchased the two-story jail from the county in 1862, and it was used for meetings until 1880. And that same year, land was purchased from Margaret Basso for $100 in gold coin. G.W. Jones, a member, was contracted to build a two-story structure for $1,350. Just try that today. The new lodge was completed with two outhouses behind the building on November 13th, 1880. Very interesting. I can also tell you that that building right there, that house, was used by Michael Landon and Victor French for an episode of Highway to Heaven. I know because I was here that day, and Michael was out in front here between takes. Very interesting experience.
I'll tell you, it's the most remarkable thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, you mean how quick he recovered?
No, I mean how much he ate for breakfast.
Oh. Doc, I can't thank you enough for what you did for him. You take care now.
Remember, try not to overdo.
I won't let him.
Now that building across the street, the one on the right, has been used for a lot of things over the years, including a general store. Although I can tell you in the 1980s, it was a deli. It was Rattlesnake Sam's Day. I think they had pizza there. It's amazing how businesses come and go in a town. This is one of the saddest cemeteries I think I've ever seen. As a boy, we would pass by here and I would notice the slow degradation of the cemetery, the vandalism that took place here with headstones knocked over. It was just a sad thing to watch. And I noticed that every time we went by as a kid. My parents bought some property up in Don Pedro, so we passed through here quite a bit, but it's a very serene area. This originally was called French Bar Cemetery. The town of French Bar was down here. French miners were the first ones to establish this area, and then they got flooded out in the 1850s, early 1850s, and then they moved upstream to the town of LaGrange. But this is the first burial site for LaGrange, California. It's been completely decimated, if you ask me. It's crazy, the amount of vandalism that happened mostly in the hippie era. So the marker closest to the road is for J.B. Brescia. He died 1884. He was 53 years old, and I believe I've read that name before in the history of LaGrange. Look at this little one over here. Just marked by rocks. No marker. We don't know who it is. No respect. Now this Michel Salamone looks like he died, actually native of Italy, born in 1833, died in 1892. And look at how this has just been pushed over. And I don't know, this one here looks like it maybe went somewhere else, and they just threw it in this cage here. I may be walking over graves, but they are not marked anymore, which is very sad. Let's see what this one says. Oh, look at this one. This one's in the ground. Eugenie Halstead, 24 years old. Well, look at this. Been broken off. We don't know who it is. This one's really cool. Look at this anchor here. And then we've got Peter Sanges, native of France. Died 1916. He was 89. Here we have the grave of Abraham, and I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly, Jeanjou. I'm guessing is French, native of Canada. He died November 20th, 1876. He was just 56. I'm assuming he was a miner here. So this grave obviously got a lot of attention with a lot of stone brought in, and there's no marker, so I have no idea who this is unless maybe I do some research online. It's unusual to have no marker. It could have been stolen. This one says we loved him, and it's Henry Lucien, son of Peter and Henrietta Ducot, born March 10th, 1863. He died Christmas Eve, 1877. Parents, good night. My work is done. I go to rest with the setting sun, but not to wake with the morning light. So, dearest parents, a long good night. He was only 14 years old. And over here we have Olive, daughter of Holly and Herman Dominici. She died June 27th, 1894. It looks like she was just 1 year old, 9 months, and 13 days. Now, I'm in the area where the Bassos are buried. Basso is a well-known name here in LaGrange. The Basso Bridge, named after Angelo Basso. He had a ferry. This is a grave of Carmela Basso, who died 1942. And I'm not sure where Angelo is buried. His marker may be stolen because there's two markers here that have the markers knocked off. And then over here we have a Rosa Basso, who was, wow, she was only 7 days old. Died in 1887 on this side. And then Joseph Basso, he was just 6 years old and died 1898. I hear Canada geese over there. Here's a marker for Nick Gallo. Looks like he died 1902 at the age of 39. And Delina Corello, she died 1894. She was 2. Wonder if they're related to the Gallos of the Gallo winery fame. And on this side is Giacomo Quirello. Quirello? Died 1891. He was 47. And then over here we've got Angela. Died 1879. And Aurelio and Vitara. Oh my gosh, there's so many names over here. People did not live long. Well, I'm really disappointed. It looks like a lot of the markers have just been probably stolen, I would guess. Sometimes you'll see these markers in antique stores and you wonder, how did people get them? Apparently they stole them. So while I think it's very cool that they've left this old gas station in place, it's kind of sad to see it decaying like it is, just rusting away with time. This is the old Hammonds and Bates General Store. I mean, it's been around for a long time. Just looking at the side of this, we see the lap boards here. Some are decaying, but I just wonder how many layers of paint have been applied to this building over the years. Crazy to think. Right across the street, I noticed this slab of concrete. I'm not sure what it was used for, but it's got anchor bolts and must have been used for something. There's a car door down here, and there's a loose rooster. Heard him cackling. Now in March of 1983, this town was all abuzz because Queen Elizabeth came through town. And she came right through here. She did not like to fly by helicopter. And so she came all the way from Castle Air Force Base, up through Snelling, up Snelling Highway, through LaGrange and on up the hill, where unfortunately 3 Secret Servicemen were killed in a car wreck. But I will never forget that day. I snapped a picture of her right in this area, and then she waved out the window. I could see Prince Philip on the other side, so the Queen was on the right side. And then they rounded that corner, right up there. I don't think there were as many chickens here back then. So I was acutely aware of this town. I had business here in town, and I knew Jerry Celia. She was the owner of the store back then when the Queen came through here. She was all excited. She made a sign. I took a picture of her out in the front here with her sign greeting the Queen, and I just walked in there to ask the store owner or the attendant if I could videotape the inside. Things have changed because she could barely speak English, and the store looks too modern, so I decided not to shoot it. But yeah, this is a very historic store. Now, I did find a historical photo that showed the post office was right there next to that house. And as you can tell, it's not here anymore. Probably nobody even knows the post office was there. Now, if you were to go to LaGrange from Oakdale, you would have taken this road here, and it goes across the old bridge. And that was also used by Michael Landon for filming of Highway to Heaven. This building, according to the sign, was built in 1867, if you can believe it. And it was used for the Lake Don Pedro Realty office. Now, there was a lot of development of Don Pedro subdivisions. My parents were among those who bought lots. Unfortunately, they didn't build anything. They ended up losing their shorts on that property because back then nobody wanted to live up here. Water was very hard to find, and I don't think they really had the money for it. But I need to go over here. This is a hotel that was actually built for the workers who built the first Don Pedro Dam in the 1920s, and then it was superseded by a 1970 dam that raised the water level much higher, and a lot of storage. A lot of the irrigation water that Modesto and Turlock farmers use was generated there in that facility. That's where they stored the water for irrigation. Now it says private property, but I don't think the sidewalk's private property. Yeah, there's one scene where Michael Landon and Victor French are walking between the saloon here and this area here.
Can't get over it.
What's that?
They still call the ranch the Sims place. I mean, that was my granddad's name, or at least it used to be.
1897 above the door. And I understand they have some good dinners here. They open at 11 today. Maybe I'll have a burger here. Other side doesn't look so hot. But what the hell is this? So this is the old LaGrange Bridge, and I think it dates back to the 1910s, if I'm correct by looking at the structure itself. This is where Michael Landon and Victor French and a bunch of child actors spent some time filming an episode of Highway to Heaven. I have some cool stories from that. So in that Highway to Heaven episode, Victor French played Mark Gordon, and he gets involved in a car accident, has a head injury, and he has a flashback to the time that he was a kid, and they go to this bridge. where a young Victor French is loafing around from school.
How does it look to you? Any different?
Like I walked away from it 5 minutes ago. You know, it's been almost 40 years. I spent some time here.
One of those slow times, Victor French and I were out here talking, and I got to know him a little bit. He's an interesting character, a little gruffy. And I asked him if he had seen the salmon run, because salmon were running in December. And at that time I looked at my watch, and he humorously said, "Oh, are they about to arrive?" He looked at your watch. And I said, no, I had to look at my watch to see if I needed to get back home. Now, most of the scenes were shot here mid-span. And for the longest time, they had etched the name of Mark Gordon in the top rail. And I saw it. They left it there. It had rusted a long time. Now, back then, this was a lot lower. But because of one of the village idiots decided he was going to walk on it and fall on one of the approaches down here, they decided to raise it so that it would be a little bit harder to fall. So that's that story. Michael Landon, I remember I shot a picture of him looking at a Christmas card out here. It was Christmas time. Now this is the area that I'm talking about. I don't know if everybody's etched their names here. And I distinctly remember seeing Mark Gordon, which was in that closing shot. And you know what? Time has erased it. Carnegie Steel. I see a stamp there, Carnegie Steel. There are no traces of Mark Gordon here. That's kind of sad. It's 41 years ago that they shot that episode. Beautiful spot here on the Tuolumne River. Michael Landon would die of cancer not long after that episode was shot here.
Hey, Jonathan, stop the car.
I probably forgot to mention that the head injury is what caused him to have this flashback to the 1940s. Very interesting concept. Injure your head and slip back in time 40 plus years. There were actually two child stars who were in this scene here on the bridge. One was at the end where Mark Gordon of modern times is back in his old self, and they travel across this bridge, which you can't travel on anymore. And he sees a kid that looks like him, and he approaches him, and it's not him. So he realizes at that point that he is back in modern times. The first child actor was Sean DeVerich, who plays the young Mark Gordon. He's very sassy, he's a smart aleck, like Mark Gordon in the TV character.
Looks like somebody stole your spot.
Yeah, it looks like. Hiya.
What do you want? I'm not supposed to talk to hobos.
What?
You look like bums.
You're a real sweetheart here.
You better not rat on me to my granddad about playing hooky. You better not, or I'll tell the sheriff you tried to hurt me.
Nobody's gonna rat on you. What's your grandpa's name, anyway?
Are you stupid?
And you're about the most obnoxious little brat I ever met in my life, so how's that? What's your name?
Mark Gordon.
And I found him on Facebook. We actually became Facebook friends. I sent him some pictures of himself as a kid that were shot right here. Right here, so yeah, I have some very vivid memories of Michael Landon on this bridge. Now, this structure was closed to vehicular traffic a number of years ago because it's not structurally sound anymore. And unfortunately, Stanislaus County has probably the bulk of their bridges are over 75 years of age. And there's just not a lot of money to replace these bridges. The Knights Ferry Bridge is the one that upsets me because it's been closed to even foot traffic, and that thing could probably stand elephant traffic, but it's closed, and it's a Army Corps of Engineers project. So who knows if they're gonna ever have money to fix that historic covered bridge in Knights Ferry. This obviously is one of the more fascinating aspects of LaGrange. It's the Inman Trading Post, 1850. It's a museum, but of course we're not here on Sunday, so we can't see it. But it's typical of the Gold Rush buildings in town. Built of block and iron doors. Iron doors were used to keep out fire and theft and all that, you know how that goes. They had thieves back in those days too, obviously. Museum closed due to rodeo Sunday. Well, we're past that, but look at this sign here. It says Stanislaus County Historical Society marker 176. And of course there's a biker coming in making racket. Trading Post, first stone building in LaGrange, built in whatever 1850 to 51 by John Inman and William Sanders. Looks like this getting a little rusty down here. I would say that this building certainly has withstood the test of time. It's held up quite well. I don't know how much maintenance they've done on it, but a lot of generations have passed through here. I don't like to bring up negatives, but this is in my mind because in 1971, my grandfather's sister's son died in a car crash, but he passed right through here. He was from Ceres, California. He had a friend with him. They were going up the road here, and about a mile out of town before you hit the old Grange Dam road. He went off the road, it was wet, flipped the car. Gary died. His passenger survived, so bad memories associated with this stretch of highway here. As you can see, they've got the old barn here. I think it was the blacksmith shop at one time. I do believe it's where this picture was taken. This barn was constructed before 1850. It was used as a post office and later stables for horses that brought freight in from Waterford. And then there's a bucket here. It's one of the buckets that was used in the dredge. And we've done a video on the dredge. I don't know if I'll get to it on this video, but these giant buckets would roll like an assembly line, scoop up dirt and dump it into this dredge. And that's how they filtered out the gold. It says this area has seen 4 phases of mining, placer, tunneling, hydraulic, and dredging. This bucket, one of the chain of 100, holds 12 cubic feet and is from one of the world's oldest dredges, the Twalmey Gold Dredging Company, and started operation June 1938 and continued to about 1949 when it was abandoned about 3 miles south of here. Other and smaller dredges operated on the river west of LaGrange, and this plaque was dedicated in 1977. And just to show you it's not all wood, look at this. It is actually made of Adobe, painted Adobe. Wonder how many times these sills have had to be replaced. Hey, you used what materials you had. Back in the 1850s, there wasn't a Home Depot or a Lowe's around here. That's kind of interesting over there. I'm not sure what that is. But there's 2 more buckets over here. And look, this is a hydraulic mining nozzle. You see one bucket could scoop up a lot of dirt, gravel. The dredge is still up the road, partially dismantled, unfortunately. Here's the old St. Louis Mission, Mass every week. Built in 1854, can you believe that? Here in the Catholic cemetery is Bill Keeler. I knew him. He was a cool old guy. Had some roots back to the mining days. He told me there were times you could just walk through town picking up nuggets. I don't know about that. Look at this one. Born in 1849, native of Portugal, and died when? 1880. In the Catholic cemetery is probably one of the most noteworthy individuals in the history of LaGrange, Louis Lavaggi. He's the one that had the saloon. Here's the Dalling family plot. I know the Dallings had a ranch around here, and there's some Rushings over here as well behind them. So in the early days, I mean, LaGrange was populated by a lot of French and a lot of Italian immigrants. Obviously came here to mine. Why else would you come here? I mean, it's a beautiful place, but there has to be something economically to support you. And I think mining was pretty much shot by, I think, the 1880s. It was all over with by then. Tapped out. You know, areas get tapped out. You just take too much gold away. Out there in the goat pasture is a schoolyard of a school that closed quite a few years ago. Not too old. So now let's talk about that building behind me. It's one of the coolest buildings here in LaGrange. It's not the original schoolhouse, because the original schoolhouse dates back to the 1850s. This building dates back to 1875, and it's not even the building that Bret Harte taught in. Now, yeah, you heard me right. Bret Harte, the famous writer, was a school teacher here in LaGrange, but this building is not the building he taught at. We don't know where that building is. I don't think they were actually partners, but all throughout the Motherlode you will hear about the Mark Twain-Bret Harte Trail. I don't think the two ever met up here in California. Well, Bret Harte actually came to San Francisco by steamer ship in the spring of 1853, and he didn't come up here first. He worked at an Oakland drugstore, but he felt restless. He knew about the mining activities up in the Sierra, but he ended up here in LaGrange, which had a school as early as 1854, which was pretty much a rare thing for mining towns. He must have been a really strange sight. He was impeccably dressed, very young, had a faint mustache, and he probably arrived to LaGrange by stage from Sonora, quite possibly by way of Knight's Ferry. He was probably surprised by what he saw here, because this town was at its peak. It was busy with gold mining and trafficking, and it was a good deal larger than you would expect for a gold mining town that was only about 2 years old. Now, some believe that Harte taught in Jacksonville, a mining town not far from here, but it was abandoned and flooded in 1970 with the raising of Don Pedro Dam. But LaGrange actually makes sense as the place where Bret Harte was because of his short story, Melisse. It was originally called The Work on Red Mountain, and there's an actual Red Mountain just a few miles above LaGrange. But contrary to legend, Harte did not teach in the schoolhouse because it wasn't built until 1875, about 2 decades after he left LaGrange. However, there was an early Adobe schoolhouse in town, which is where Harte may have taught. You have to truly watch your step around here. Look at this. Can't believe they haven't roped this off. So now let's go into this cemetery. It's probably the only public cemetery here in town where people are still being buried. Although I did see some fresh graves over in the Catholic cemetery, but that's a Catholic cemetery. This is more of a general population cemetery. Something doesn't look right about this. William Syme, 1860 to 1895. Just here by itself by a tree. It does not look right. Right there is the grave of William Floto, native of Hanover, Germany. He was born in 1831 and he died in 1871. There is a Floto Street here in LaGrange, and that's named after him. And over on this side, you see that there's a Charles William Floto, a child of 1 year and 7 months, died in 1862. Suffer little children to come unto me, and forbid them not. And they propped it up because it's falling. According to this little thing here, this is the oldest marked grave. It's of Mary Crossan, died in 1857. She was just 9 months old. Crazy how short life is. I'm actually surrounded by walls here, and got close to the grave of Noble Dawson, died in 1872. He was just 62. This is the grave of Nancy Kennan, born in 1796 and who came to LaGrange by covered wagon in 1854. Her daughter, Anne Eliza, married Elihu Beard in 1856. That makes her the grandmother of Thomas Kennan Beard, who was an early Modesto land and real estate developer. So I actually got to know one of the Beards. Franklin Beard is one of the descendants of the Beard family, and when he was assembling a book, and I think it was 1986, he did a series of books on Stanislaus County history. He wanted to do a book on history of LaGrange, and since I'd done a lot of newspaper articles on historical aspects to this area, he borrowed a lot of them, and we collaborated on his project. That book is very hard to find. I have a copy of it, and if you find a copy of it, it's probably going to cost you anywhere from $40 to $80, or maybe even more, because they're private printing and they're rare. But it's a hardback book, so it was a cool project to work with him on. Unfortunately, he died of cancer many years ago. Franklin Beard, descendant of the Beards. This family plot here, the Randall family plot, contains some very tragic history. 2 sons murdered in different incidences, and one by his own father. So Lyman Randall was a very valued son, and he was murdered in September 1888. He was just 22. He was tending sheep in a place called Mountain Pass in Tuolumne County, and apparently there was an argument with an employee that he had named John Peretta. Well, Randall hit Peretta and fired him and went on his way. And then Peretta went to fetch a rifle and followed Randall and shot him to death on the road, left his body there. Robbery wasn't a factor because there was $500 on him. And then there's the story of Hazard Randall, who was murdered in 1896 by his crazy father, Rhodes Randall, who happens to be buried in the Sonora City Cemetery. I read that he actually went insane, but his family wasn't concerned about him being a danger. He would often ask for permission to do things, probably because of his condition. So on the morning of March 20th, 1896, Rhodes Randall asked his son Hazard if he could go hunting jackrabbits, and when he was told not to go, obviously they were concerned about him. Moments later, he shot his son in the chest with a .38 caliber rifle. When his wife came to the door to see what happened, he pointed the gun at her, but another son wrestled the gun away. He was then tied up. He was arrested and charged with murder, taken to the Tuolumne County Jail in Sonora. When it was explained what he did, he was confused and didn't remember any of it. His wife warned the sheriff of the risk of suicide, and the sheriff had a guard with Rhodes throughout much of his time in jail, but 2 days later the guard stepped away for about 15 minutes to get his breakfast, and when he returned he saw Rhodes had hanged himself with his blanket. He was buried apart from his family, and none of them supposedly attended the funeral. The 3 boys are buried here with their mother and siblings. So let me tell you about Pierre Ducos. Lived from 1837 to 1914. He was a native of Bordeaux, France. He left France when he was about 12. He joined the Merchant Marines, sailing around the world. And when he was approximately 17, he arrived in San Francisco about the time of the gold rush. They quickly made it up to the gold fields and mined as much as they could. He and 5 other Frenchmen came to the Snake Ravine near LaGrange, where they mined successfully. Now, at the age of 25, Peter married 13-year-old Henrietta Domenici, daughter of William and Henrietta Domenici. During their long marriage, they had 10 children. So this is the grave of William Domenici, 1822 to 1904. He was born in Dachau, Germany. He married Marie on October 4th, 1846. In December 1852, William and his pregnant wife and daughters Henrietta and Marie traveled by ship to New York, then to the Isthmus of Panama, on foot across the isthmus, then by riverboat to San Francisco, and up to the San Joaquin River to Knight's Ferry. And that journey took almost 6 months. From there, they made the overland trip of several miles necessary to reach their final destination of LaGrange, where William's older brother Joseph and family awaited them. Now, William tried his hand in searching for gold for a while, meeting with great success, and then later he took up farming on 280 acres, growing fruit, making wine from his grapes, and producing vegetables from his garden, all which he sold to valley and mountain towns. Now, during their 58 years of marriage, William and Henrietta Domenici had 8 children. He died in 1904 at the age of 81. Nice old ripe age. So what's your name?
George Ingalls.
Okay. And you lived here at 85 years?
85 years, born here.
Really?
Yeah.
You were born in the house?
No, I was born in Modesto.
Oh.
2 days old,
Yeah.
to come home.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I moved away and tried to get smart, go to school and all that stuff, but that didn't work too well.
what kind of a town is LaGrange?
What town? Kind? It says, and we were talking about it the other day. Years ago, when I was a kid, everybody knew everybody. Everybody helped everybody, But it's not that way anymore. It's kind of a do-your-own thing.
Right.
Yeah. And nobody wants to volunteer anything, We have a museum, and we're down there, and a nuisance, and we're down to 2 people, and it's me and another guy, And so nobody wants to volunteer. Young people don't want to volunteer. If they can't get something out of it, they don't want to do it. So that's the way it goes.
You know a lot of people here in the cemetery, huh?
Yeah, I said the old people. I don't know the name of these people, And I don't know them. I know a lot of them, but I don't know the older people. I know them a lot just by name alone,
Right.
It's amazing they don't. And the guy was over here. His mother's in the hospital, had a stroke. He was out here the other day fixing her graveside up for her to go. She went supposed to last over a month or so.
Oh.
So he had prepared her already, prepared the site for her.
Well, I lucked out. Mr. Ingalls, who was just checking on me because he's the caretaker of the cemetery, I want to make sure I wasn't up to any bad things. He recognized me, and he's going to open the museum for me. So we get to take a look at the museum that ordinarily would be open today. So, lucked out.
People like it. We got their clothes for the rodeo. We went open for the rodeo last weekend. We used to stay open. Nobody comes here during the rodeo, so we said, they're too busy to go up and down the road and drinking beer.
Oh yeah, it's a drinking affair.
We'll turn the lights on.
He's gonna turn the lights on for us. I've never been in here my whole life, and I've lived in this area. Oh, look at this. So it's a little replica of your Your post office, huh?
Well, yeah, that's not original.
No.
The lady, her aunt was a postmistress or something for years, so she kind of dedicated this to her aunt. We thought about tearing it up, make a room for it.
Part of the museum highlights LaGrange for its annual rodeo and includes photos of past celebrated town residents like these from 1948. One of the objects on display is the cowboy hat of the late Bret Harte, who was the Stanislaus County Sheriff from 1923 to 1949. And that's Bret Harte's hat, huh?
Huh?
Bret Harte's hat. The sheriff.
The hat, yeah, I know. Where it belonged to. I go through there every day to see something I miss because I take so much for granted.
My eye stopped on this photo of John Inman, whose name is on this very stone building built in 1850. It appears to have been restored judging by its appearance in the photo at right taken in the 1930s, nearly a century ago. It just may be the oldest remaining building in Stanislaus County. Remember the Hammond and Bates General Store that we visited earlier? It was once owned by this man, James Hammond, who was a storekeeper, postmaster, and Wells Fargo agent in LaGrange. Since he had the keys to the gates, Mr. Ingalls offered to drive me up to the historic Grange Dam, with our route taking us along this canal. I was able to see the Grange Dam, which is gated off out of public view. It's located upstream from LaGrange, and on this day, the Tuolumne River was diverted through the powerhouse and fallout, allowing an unfettered view of the stone structure built in 1893. At the time, it was the highest overflow dam in the United States, built at a cost of $550,000. Unlike most dams, little water is stored behind the LaGrange Dam. Instead, its purpose is to raise the level of the river to channel off water to the left and right sides into canals which gravity feeds water to farms in the Central Valley. The remainder is used to generate electricity at the powerhouse and flow freeing downstream to support fish. Notice the concrete caps at the top to raise the dam's height to 131 feet. 18 inches were added in 1923, and in 1930 an additional 2 feet were added. About 120 years ago, folks would journey by wagon to picnic on a hill overlooking the dam and its man-made waterfall. It seems a shame that the public isn't allowed to do that today, and I'm sure the private property and liability factors into that. This stone dam replaced the 1856 wooden Wheaton Dam that was taken out by natural forces of water over the years. I was getting hungry, so I decided to see what kind of burger I could get inside of the historic Grange Saloon. It did not disappoint. The burger was massive, and the interior was just the way I imagined it would look, with dollar bills stuck to the ceiling, rodeo-themed artwork, a mounted buffalo head, and murals of the Lavalle family. It's apparent that cattle ranchers and rodeo cowboys have made the saloon their primary hangout while in town. So this is the historic Basso Bridge, 1912, built by Stanislaus County. It was so named after Angelo Basso, who originally had a ferry here. Now, obviously, before they had bridges, you had to find your way across these rivers. This is the Tuolumne River, and you would get on this, looked like a large boat with openings at both ends, and you had cables stretched across the river that enabled the operator to pull you from side to side, and of course the ferry operators charged for that. That's how they made money. Now this obviously would have been before cars, so about the 1910s and before is when you would have ridden across the Basso ferry here. It's been replaced by that modern bridge over there. This is still sturdy to walk on though, I want you to know. Unfortunately, a lot of people have graffitied it up. People don't have respect anymore for property. It's pretty nasty things written on this bridge. So from historic LaGrange, California, I hope that you really appreciated what we had to show you in this episode of History Hunters. Some very fascinating history, if you ask me, relating to the gold rush. Love to hear your comment. If you could also give us a thumbs up, we would appreciate that. Always support History Hunters by telling your friends about us. Thanks so much.
Rain in the shadow, and my head on my window pane. Shadow, don't you bother me anymore. Don't you darken up my door. Shadow, don't you follow me anymore. Just lie and stay there on the floor. Sunshine, shine on this frail head of mine. Sunshine.